I mean, lottery season is a real thing in the scene, and it can be an exciting time. It can be a disappointing time. Sometimes it can leave you just slumped over in a chair thinking, what has my life become? Greetings. Welcome back to episode 2 of the Trail Currents podcast. Jamil Coury here.
Jubilee Paige joining.
We got a doozy for you guys tonight.
Oh my gosh. You
afternoon.
guys know about it.
Whew. So we've been doing the pre-show. We should have been recording it because it was something else.
I know. We get into let's chit chat before we actually hit record. And then 2 hours later, we should have hit record.
Arms are flailing. People are shouting. All kinds of stuff's happening.
Loud noises.
And all that info is just
gone.
I
don't know. All right, but we'll recreate it. I mean, it's a bit of a biting topic.
Yeah. So tonight we are talking about race lotteries.
Whoa. What are your chances?
Holla, holla, holla. Don't forget about the lotteries.
Oh, my God.
Songs dropping soon.
Sure. So
let's get to this week's sponsor. Run Steep, Get High again, because we don't have real sponsors yet. If you guys want to cop yourself some sweet threads, go hop on over to runsteep.com. We've got some great hats, shirts. You can help support this show and all of our hopes and dreams. TCP15, the code is still good. We still haven't posted the first podcast, by the way.
For 15% off, yeah?
15% off all orders. And we are getting some new stuff in the shop soon. So hopefully that will still be good. Otherwise, I'm sure they will be a sponsor again because they love us so dearly here.
I'm telling you, they really support what we do over here at TCP. Thank you, Run Steep, Get High.
All right, so let's get right into the show here. We want to waste little of your time. We're going to be talking about lotteries today, and we want to just have a little bit of a free-flowing conversation about the state of 100-mile race lotteries in the U.S. and abroad. This is a big topic.
Yep.
This time of year, December, January, that is all of the talk of the town because everyone is trying to plan their year.
They want to know, what races they're going to put on their schedule.
And that way we can fill in the rest of our schedule.
Right.
And then we can begin the process of deciding the qualifiers we're going to run so that we can apply for these races again next year.
Right.
Because
if I don't get into this race, then I can get into this race.
This is the life of an ultra runner. You apply for a lottery, you qualify for a lottery, pick the race based upon the qualifier, run the qualifier, apply for the lottery, sit and wait until they call you up and it is your turn.
But is it your turn?
And then you just go qualify again because that's what we do. We just
your whole year is based on qualifying for those races and then maybe hoping to get into those races and then maybe you don't get into those races. So you're going to go and qualify the next year.
It is a
vicious cycle.
Vicious cycle.
So what's the spielio? I mean, why is it a vicious cycle? Why can't I just go and fill my calendar with all the happy, fun races that I want to run?
So it is a case of supply and demand. That is at the heart of this situation. We have many of these races that have capacity limits for one reason or another.
Yeah.
Western States has a wilderness area that they run through. The race was grandfathered in, so they are limited to 369 athletes that may toe the line, no more.
Ever.
Hopefully no less. For a while, they were actually running this rolling average where they could be a little higher and then they had to be a little lower, and as long as they hit 369. But with the introduction of their wait list, they can now start exactly 369. Moving on to Hardrock, they also have some land agency issues, but they self-impose their capacity limit.
Correct.
For their own reasons. They have them. They know them. Actually, I think they want to try and keep the small feel of the race.
It's an intimate race.
So they have...
But I didn't know it wasn't because of land management.
Well, for instance, they went up to 152 runners,
but then
I think,
and
then they came back to 145.
Yeah.
So because they said the 7 extra people introduced an adverse effect on the race, if you can believe that.
Okay.
But know. They have some limits. Some of the aid stations are remote. The roads get busy. I can see that.
Yeah. There
could be solutions for that. They could have shuttles. Western States does that. They could limit those more. But the school gym for the awards at the beginning and
it's pretty packed at the end.
It's packed.
Yeah.
If you had 300 runners, people would be overflowing. So
you'd have to. I mean, Silverton itself is a small town. There's not a lot of places that can probably accommodate.
I mean, the San Juans in general. I mean, 4th of July they have a lot of people up there.
Definitely.
They have a lot. They have thousands.
But they're not crowded into like one area.
They might have to move out of the gym and like expand, and they'd have to change things up. Maybe they have to start over by the Kendall Mountain area and set up a giant tent, or they would have to change their program.
Yeah.
And they like their program, so they keep doing it. I mean, it's their race. So
it's what 25 years and 25 years?
Since 93, so something like that.
Something like that.
So we're definitely going to talk about Western States, Hardrock. Those are 2 of the biggest we want to touch upon. We also want to touch upon UTMB.
Yeah.
We want to get the international perspective on it. And we also want to talk about Leadville, as well, as they seem less limited by numbers, although they seem to be, I don't know if they're capping them due to interest or just maybe that's all they get. I don't know. They don't publish an entry limit. There's very little information on the Leadville website that your typical ultra runner would be looking for.
Right.
Like, now that they're owned by Lifetime Fitness, they're a little bit more corporate. They're kind of following a little bit more of the Ironman model. They have age group qualifications at these other qualifying races. So they're taking a little bit of a different spin on it. And, the day after the lottery, which just happened, like I would love to go see a ranked entrance list, like on Ultra Sign Up. Someone please help them. You can't find it.
No.
We don't know who's in the race other than you see a Facebook post from someone that says,
Made it.
Rut-row. I literally saw that. Rut-row.
Rut-row? From the Sunday?
Someone said rut-row. Because the guy's also running UTMB and the Ure 100. So not a smart move.
Choices.
Peter Mortimer. I just put you on blast.
Oh, no.
So this is an interesting conversation because I personally have run all of these races.
Yeah, and I have run none of these races. So
this is, if you're a first-time listener, this is our background. I've been running ultras since 2005, and I ran Western States in 2010 or 11. I can't really remember, which is
Can you not remember
I can't remember the year.
The Mary Statesmith song where you said when
life is great. No. What did I say?
No,
did I say 11?
I can't remember.
I don't know if I actually said the year.
I thought it was 2010, like one and done son type of, no?
Maybe.
I don't know. I remember.
It might have been 2010. I think I ran Rocky Raccoon that year, and that might have been the Western States year.
Yeah.
I think that's right. 2010. It was the year after the fire year, although I didn't get delayed because of the fire. So maybe I was a 2-time loser. We'll get to that.
Okay.
And I've run Hardrock 4 times.
Yeah.
Finished 4 times. Run UTMB once, and I've run Leadville once, back in 2012. So I've kind of gone through the drama of the lottery, and I've seen the lotteries change and grow over time. When I signed up for Leadville, there wasn't even a lottery. UTMB, I got lucky. Hardrock, I applied early, and Western States, I was early enough before the big boom
of
and
everybody wants to run
and the
this.
multiple tickets and years and multiplications and all that stuff
right
started happening. And what about you? When did you run your first ultra?
I mean, it was last year? Was it last year? It was last year in 2017. I signed up for Old Pueblo. I think that was my first ultra Didn't finish it, but ran a distance of 36, so
ultra distance
into it, and then finished my first race a month later. I went to 9 Trails in Santa Barbara and ran 5 50Ks last year.
Just hitting it.
Just hit it. And
you're gearing up for your first 100 miler.
I'm gearing up for my first 100 miler.
How was your lottery process?
I didn't have a lottery process.
What?
I know. It was just, I looked at the race and I was like, man, that looks like an awesome race. I want to run it. And I signed up in time before it sold out. So
amazing. What a concept.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So.
But it doesn't mean that I don't want to run these races sometime.
How many of these would you like to run? Would you like to run all of these? Western States, Hardrock, UTMB, Leadville? Do they all appeal to you?
Not all of them appeal to me, but, Hardrock is definitely one near and dear only because I've been a part of the Silverton, feel, I guess, for the last 2 years. And that's been something pretty special to me. And I'm working on the women of Hardrock. And so that as a woman who has experienced that race kind of from an outside perspective, I definitely want to run that someday as a competitor. I want to be amongst the mountain women who do that race. I think it's amazing. I think it's badass, especially running in the San Juans. Something about the mountains. But, not all of them appeal to me, but definitely Hardrock is one of them for sure.
Sometimes there's something to be said, though, even if they don't appeal to you, about the history.
Yeah.
Like Western States has such the history
that
that makes you want to experience what Gordy did back in the day and the mystique that
I remember,
is part of it.
Even first getting into ultra running and knowing the community and going to Javelina and meeting Gordy for the first time in 2014, 2015 and being going, oh my gosh, that's the dude, right? He's the dude of ultra running. And putting Western States on a bucket list. I have a bucket list of all of these races, and Western States was definitely on one of it. Before I even knew anything about the race or anything about the terrain, I got to experience it filming it last year in June.
Being out there
on the course. Anything? You just want to experience the whole thing. You want to experience the course, and it's absolutely beautiful out there.
It made me want to go back.
Yeah.
I haven't been back since 2010, but
yeah. It makes me want to experience just the whole course because of the beauty and just the nature and the mountains and the canyons and all of it. There's definitely an experience there.
And even for me, Leadville was one of these ones that didn't appeal to me a lot. Other than the fact that it's the Leadville 100,
right.
And it's so old, it's part of the Grand Slam,
right.
And the infamous Tarahumara's, racing Ann Trayson, all that stuff.
Yeah,
I wanted to run it, and I was able to do that and kind of check it off the bucket list.
And it was definitely on my bucket list too. But I think because it's changed so much, not sure if it's something that I want to pursue. But even UTMB, just being in France and being in those mountains, it's something I want to experience.
So let's jump into the lottery here. A little bit about the history of the lottery. It was started in 1981 from the sources that we have kind of looked up.
Western States, yeah.
The Western States Lottery.
Yeah.
And even up to the year 2000, we were looking at some of this historical data here on their website. They had 583 applicants for those 369 spots. And back then, there once was a time when you could just fill out your entry and sign up. But that went away pretty quick because it was so popular.
Yeah, of course.
So, but you'd think with that kind of a turnover, you're going to get to run it probably every other year or even better than that with only 500 or so applicants. And that stayed the same. It slightly went up into the early mid-2000s. I think I applied for the first time in 2006 or 7. I ran my first ultra in 2005, so I was probably qualified then. And I was able to apply probably before there was even 1,000 people, but then they instituted the 2-time loser. Actually, I don't know when they started.
The loser years.
Yeah.
Is that what I mean?
I don't know when they started the 2-time loser rule. I'm not sure. That might have been going on for a while.
Okay.
But that made a lot of sense because if you don't get in 2 times in a row, then you're an automatic, and then that reduces the total number.
Right.
And I know Western States also has a lot of other spots that go to other people for certain reasons.
Yeah,
so,
it's not just a lottery. There's other...
Exactly. There's a lot of other ways to get into
this race.
Because they really only have about 250 slot names they draw in the lottery. The other 120 spots are last year's top 10, golden ticket race winners, sponsor slots, volunteer spots. The board gets a couple spots.
Right.
Gordy gets a spot as long as he qualifies. Things like that.
Yeah.
So and that's all built into the history of the race. Those things evolved over time as the board and everything came together. They decided that this makes sense. This helps with the mystique and the history of the race, and it's beneficial to have this.
Yeah.
And this is valued. It's valued above letting all 369 spots go to anyone.
Sure.
So,
I mean, it's coveted. It creates this, a kind of excitement around the race. And
there's sometimes it's cool to see the same people running the races over and over again, where it creates this competition. Like the top 10ers getting in every year and they're racing each other and they're coming back and they're making a tradition out of it. And, guys like Andy Jones Wilkins, and they're such an institution now. I think of him because that's when I got into the sport, he was always getting top 10, and that was a huge deal.
Yeah.
But there was Tim Tweetmeyer, 25 consecutive sub 24 hours. Like those kind of things are pretty amazing. But then we hit the end of the 2-time loser, and that was my year. I got in it is 2010. That was the last year for the 2-time losers. There was a fire year in 2008 where the race was canceled, and then they had to roll everyone over in the course of 2009 and 10 because they had to take all the 2008 runners and essentially roll them to 2009. So it's a little bit of the history, kind of crazy. And then from there, and they used to draw paper tickets. Now they have an electronic drawing, they say. So then things started to balloon up, and they started keeping track of how many years you apply, and then you get this 2 to the n-1 tickets. So this exponential growth pattern of tickets where you're doubling your ticket count every single year, but so is everyone else. So it really, it introduces these interesting things that we're going to talk about it into play that maybe you didn't think about when you just ran your qualifier and put your name in ultra sign up. And that's the heart of what we want to talk about today is let's talk about some of the forces at play with the mathematics a little bit and what are people's chances now?
What are my chances?
In 2018, there was the most applicants ever, and it seemed that the race celebrated that. They praised the fact that they got over 4,900 applicants. I don't know. If I'm directing that race, I would be apologizing almost. I don't know. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's an incredible testament to the race they've built, right? That there are that many people that want to do it. That is unbelievable. They have such a well-oiled machine, and the people that are behind that race do such an incredible job.
I mean, it's a celebration, of the race and the history of the race and the organization and, years and years of work. Now, a lot of people who even maybe are just getting into ultra running, me or whoever, they look at the Western States 100 and they're like, this is number 1 on my bucket list. I'm going to run this race someday because it is like the Mecca for ultra runners.
Absolutely. But with 4,900 applicants, that introduces some problems. So we now have 7-year applicants.
Yeah.
So when they did away with the 2-time loser, you now have 7-time losers. And as you can see, every year there's more and more people in these ticket counts. And for instance, last year in the 6-year category, there was 31 people. So a lot of them got selected.
Yeah.
But then 8 of them reapplied this year as 7 years.
Right.
There was 71 6 years compared to 31. Now, maybe
Next
some
year,
of them got maybe 20 or 25 of them got selected.
Right.
Now there might be 45 instead of 8.
Right.
And you can see how with more and more people on the bottom end of this distribution chart that
more and more people
going
throughout the years.
If you just kind of like look ahead a couple years,
yeah.
And with the international growth of the sport and with the number of international qualifiers that Western States has in place and just the booming popularity and the fact that this is one race that everyone wants to do. Even if you've run it once before, you want to do it again.
I mean, you celebrate the fact that Western States is so popular, but at the same time,
it's a bit of a freight train that like you got to see what's coming. And what's coming is when you have the 15-year applicants and the 20-year applicants. And when you have 200 20-year applicants,
what are your chances?
Never get to run the race.
So, and you're going against the 20-year applicants, and then all of a sudden, I'm way back here I'm just now starting to apply and just get qualified.
Yeah. Like there was 2,600 first-year applicants. And even if people that ran the race last year, they now jump back into that 1 year. They kind of cycle back through, but now you have a lot of Europeans that want to run. I don't know. I don't see the breakdown of where all these people are coming from. I think that is one of the arguments is that there's maybe at some point the U.S. there won't be as many, but I mean.
But that doesn't mean it's not growing, especially like in European countries and in Asian countries.
Yeah.
The sport is starting to take off all over the world.
And I think a lot of those people, especially when you start to see the Ultra Trail World Tour kicking in, people put Western States on a pedestal.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's older than any of the races anywhere else in the world, practically. And it's got to be at the top of people's lists.
Absolutely.
Just like Hardrock probably is as well. And they want to run it. And I don't know. I don't see where this gets better. Am I missing something here?
I mean, that's the thing. Year after year after year, you're going to have more people who have patiently and, who have gone after their qualifier year after year after year for the last 10 years, 15 years, who have never gotten in and may never get in.
So like we have the third year bucket took a big jump because the race took a big jump a couple years ago in applicants. Like jumped by 1,000 people from 2015 to 2016. It was kind of stable for a few years where you had these 3-year applicants where you had 250, 200, 258, 281. Then you had 377. Then you had 397. Now you had 668. The increase is the whole race. It's the whole lottery. So at some point, the numbers just become overwhelming where, I mean, the demand is just way outstripping the supply. So what are some of the problems here? We had like some notes.
We did have some notes.
Which we wanted to pull out a little bit. And some of these, we have to thank Joe Yuhan for a couple of these. We do want to name drop him. He shared some thoughts after this year's lottery. He's been thinking a lot about it. We wanted to kind of, and these are things that we had been thinking about as well, and that are just interesting to think about.
I mean, one of my issues as a person who hasn't qualified but is looking to possibly run this race, sometime in the future, I don't know what my chances are, probably slim to none if I don't start today. So that means this year I'm going to have to run. You just
ran your first ultra.
I just ran my first ultra. That means if I want to run and qualify for Western States, I'm going to have to think of a qualifier this year so I can qualify for next year's lottery and put in my name.
When do you feel like you would be ready to or want to run Western States?
I mean, I'm not going to be ready anytime soon. If I just ran, I'm a 50K ultra runner. I'm not ready for 100 miles, and I'm especially not ready for 100 miles within that terrain, within that environment. It's beautiful. I'll hike the crap out of it, but I'm not ready to run 100 miles in that wilderness.
But you want to run it someday?
If I want to run it someday, I'm going to have to start applying.
You better get
today.
your qualifier, and you better start applying.
Right. So this is what we're seeing, from a lot of people. They may not be ready, and they're especially not ready today or this year, but they may be later on. So we're seeing this dilution of premature entry. And that's only, you are raising how many applicants, but how many applicants out of that 4,900 are actually ready to run that race this year?
It's a great question. There's no question on the application for that.
Right.
For me personally, I applied last year and this year because I want to run it again someday. I've run it once, and I could be okay not running it again, but I kind of want to run it again someday. And it's already been 8 years. And if I would have been applying the whole time, because I stopped applying for 5 years and maybe I shouldn't have, because I would be sitting there with another entry in my pocket next year. If I was, an 8th time or 7th time applicant, I'd be pretty close to getting in at this point. But I pulled myself out because I was focusing on other events. But It's not really smart to do that anymore with the way that it's set up, because if you're not applying, then
every year
you're never going to get in.
And it's not just, you don't need just to apply, but you have to apply every year.
And
you have to qualify every year.
It's another interesting part of the Western States Lottery is you don't get to keep your tickets. You don't get to keep the years that you applied. And let's say something happened that year, or let's just say you really don't want to run it that year. Like you want to run something else, or you got into something else and you don't want to run it that year. You still have to qualify. You still have to go seek out one of the limited qualifying races. You have to run it. Even if you didn't want to run it, you have to go do it. And then you have to apply, and you have to possibly get picked and run potentially. And you have to run it if you get in.
Because if
they
don't,
call you up, then you lose your spot and you go back to the back of the line. So currently, I think there is a very real possibility that there are a lot of people in the lottery that don't want to run in that given year.
Right.
I see this personally, and you see it as a hypothetical.
I see it as a hypothetical because, for me, I want to run it, but I know that I'm not ready. And if if I'm a lucky or, just kind of out of the hat, one and done pick, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I got in, I am not ready to run that 100 miler. And if I step up to toe the line, I'm not going to finish. And that would just, no.
So if you were being wise and looking at your own abilities and thinking about when you might want to plan this into your life, you're being penalized because every year you don't apply, you're just getting pushed further and further back.
Yeah.
Because everyone else is getting exponential tickets. And when you hop in line, you just get one.
Right.
And everyone has multiples upon multiples, 128 tickets, 256 tickets. Like it just keeps going up. And it's this idea that you're being penalized for being patient and smart.
But, for those multiple people who have 256 tickets, what are their chances when there's 70 more people with the same amount of tickets? I mean, I know that my chances are nothing, but,
Well, their chances don't keep going up by that amount. They just slightly get better because everyone else in the pool is also doubling their ticket counts. Right. So you're just, because some people are removed from the lottery pool with a lot of tickets because they get selected, or
life
there's
gets
attrition.
In the way.
Yeah, there's attrition, and that's another thing we were talking about. There's a race. There's a first race you have to run, and it's called the lottery race, where every year you've got to qualify, you've got to apply, you've got to do all these things and not miss a year
to stay in
the race, to just get to the starting line.
Right.
And that's kind of crazy.
Because if life gets in the way, if something for whatever reason, you cannot get that qualifier.
One scenario we were talking about was, what if you get pregnant or are planning a family?
Right.
For the women out there, that's a serious concern that I know women have to plan this. There's women athletes that have to choose between, am I going to possibly run a 100 miler this summer through a lottery, or am I going to have a child?
I mean,
that's crazy.
And I mean, what a choice to make too. Like that shouldn't even be a question.
It shouldn't.
You know, but like if I get drawn,
defer those tickets.
If I get drawn in December and I found out I'm pregnant in November, like, come on, really? Like I can't like put a freeze on those tickets and say, not this year. I've got something cooking. Like,
if you're one of those 5 or 6 time applicants, and you know you're kind of forced to apply and see what happens, and
right.
and I don't know that they have anything in place. If you did get selected, can you defer it a year?
Can you
if
you defer
you're
it?
due in June? I don't know if this has happened, but it's bound to. Or I bet you there's women out there that have just not applied because they're I'm going to be having a child in June, so I can't run 100 milers. So I'm going to pull my name out, but then if you don't apply, you lose all your tickets.
You lose everything.
And that's a shame because...
And it's not just like,
that's a lot of work. And if it's someone that's never run the race before, I don't know. That's
heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to see something change there. And on the other side too, that's not the only scenario where that makes sense.
No, but
there's,
I mean,
we were thinking of many of them. We don't need to go through all of them, but there's life things that happen.
Anything that happens, yeah.
And I mean, that happens to all of us, right? But it would be nice to see maybe
some kind of like ticket deferral where if you have 5 years that you've qualified and you put your name in and you haven't gotten chosen yet, and something comes up that 6th year and you can't make the qualifier, something happens, it's heartbreaking to lose 5 years of work and 5 years of, I ran the Black Canyon Ultra every year for 5 years so I could qualify for Western States, or I ran whatever qualifier I did for 5 years and gave up all these other races that I could have run because they really, really, really want to run Western. And it's heartbreaking to think that people just kind of go bankrupt and have to start from square one.
And there's no easy answer to this. We're being critical of the race and the lottery, but with this much demand outstripping supply, I mean, we're just kind of tinkering with the edges, really, of this tsunami wave of people that want to run this race.
And I think, I don't think it's going to get better. I don't think it's going to plateau. I don't think it's, there's only going to be 4,900 people applying every year. I think it's going to it's going to increase.
I don't know that that's going to go down.
No, I don't think it will.
Soon.
I don't think it will.
I don't think so. Especially as just the prestige and the hype of the race continues to build, which
and even like the sport of ultra running, as it increases, as there's more and more people, taking on the challenge of running 100 miles. When you look at a 100-mile race, sitting there at the top, gleaming in the distance is the Western States 100. So,
and that kind of brings us to our next sub point about why do we all want to run Western States, and why are we all just running the qualifiers every year? And why aren't we running races because we want to?
I mean, why is it on your bucket list?
Well, I don't know. Maybe that's not the right way to put it, but more often that.
But why? Yeah.
I think part of it is like kind of being forced to run the qualifiers. And it's not like you can qualify anywhere, No. There are strategic select races that are qualifiers, which are limited. They do try to limit them because I think that the idea is that limits the number of applicants. But what ends up happening is that everyone just goes to those races, and then they may not go to, and maybe that wasn't first on their list, but for instance, for you, I mean, do you think about that when you're looking at your year? I mean, at some point you may. Hey,
I'm going to have to.
What's a Western States qualifier?
Yeah, I'm going to have to look at the list.
Do
I have a desire to run any of those races?
Maybe not.
Maybe not.
It's maybe not first on your list, but every year you've got to prioritize at least one of those.
Right.
And that kind of brings us to the point of, why are these races why are they the select races and others are not.
So
and this is kind of a bigger conversation, I think, too. And
so it's not just any 100 miler. It's not any 100K, that you have to qualify with. It's specific ones that they deem worthy, right?
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is they chose them based upon, they switched to 100Ks recently.
Mm-hmm.
So that it used to be when I was first applying, it was 50-mile races. Or you could qualify at a 50-miler as long as you were under 11 hours or any 100-miler within the cutoff, I believe.
Okay.
So it was more lenient because you could just go pick like a completely flat 50-mile race and go do 11 hours, which I think is pretty doable for most people.
Yeah.
Maybe it doesn't get you exactly prepared for the Western States 100.
Probably not.
So they bumped it up beyond the 50-mile to the 100K and then selected the largest 100Ks and the largest 100-milers in the country for whatever reason.
Okay.
And what's happened is those have kind of snowballed into these kind of mega events that everyone tries to go to. So I don't know. I don't know if it's completely a bad thing, but it's in stark contrast to, say, a UTMB style where
you run races based on points.
Based on points, and any race can become a qualifier.
Right.
And I do kind of like that system.
Yeah.
Because it's more fair for the races, and it puts less burden on individual races for everyone to just, and less burden on the runners to be forced into doing a certain race as a qualifier.
Right.
Year after year after year after year after year.
Right.
And I know there was a bit of I actually don't remember. I should look this up real quick.
But I think we've talked about that before as far as with UTMB, any race out there can qualify as a UTMB qualifier to be selected for X amount of points. And then you run that race, you get your points, you get enough points to apply for UTMB, and then you get entered into their lottery.
Right. So this might be a good way to segue into this. And this was actually, I have to make a big point. This was not from Western States. So they were not part of this, but there was a letter published, and it was, I think on some websites, it was just guest author, but then on other ones, it was authored, I think, by Fred Abramowitz, who's the race director for Run Rabbit Run, but it was signed Hardrock 100, Run Rabbit Run 100, Speed Goat 50K, Wasatch 100, San Diego 100, Cascade Crest, Angeles Crest, Grindstone, Bighorn. So all of these old school 100-mile races, all signing onto this letter. And I think the biggest gist was they didn't want to pay to have their races become qualifiers. And they said it was this racketeering scheme, which is pretty interesting. We're maybe going on a tangent here.
We've talked about this before.
I guess I do have a bit of a defense for UTMB in that imagine vetting the qualifying races for over 8,000 runners. Yeah. Actually, they probably get, I don't even know how many applicants they get now. It could be 12, 14,000.
Yeah.
You have to vet all of these people, and imagine vetting all of these races all over the world that are popping up.
Right.
There might be 100 or 200 new races or more that pop up every year that want to become qualifier races. Well, how do you pick them? Why this race? Why not this race? What's the fairest system to make that work? Currently, there's no way to apply to become a Western States qualifier or a Hardrock qualifier.
They're chosen.
As far as I know.
Right? They're chosen.
They're just chosen, voted upon by the board. And I don't know if it's, in a couple of our races are, Haviland 100 and Black Canyon, but they were kind of big already.
Right.
And with Hardrock, the Mogollon Monster is, and that was before we inherited the race. So right. I think maybe you have to know them, or your race has to become big enough to catch their eye. Okay. And then they'll consider it, and then they have to vote upon it.
Right.
But I don't know. I know that a lot of the races are now adding all these international 100-milers that people can qualify at, but a lot of the board members probably have never even run these races or I don't know what kind of analysis they do on
the UTMB races or the
Hardrock and Western States races, the qualifiers.
Yeah.
You know, whereas with UTMB, what happens is the International Trail Running Association gets a GPS track. This is what we go through with, because we do certify all of ours.
We submit GPS tracks,
and a lot of times,
and they have to meet
scrutinize.
Oh, they do.
They'll reject it because there was something wrong with it, and they couldn't get the accurate data.
There was an issue this year with Crown King.
So that's kind of interesting. I think I kind of like that model because it gives every race a fighting chance at being a qualifier for something big.
Yeah.
You do pay a fee, mostly I think to pay for the person to do the data and the certification.
I mean, to look at it.
Someone's time has to be spent
right.
looking and analyzing, well, is this a 2-point race or a 5-point race? And if it's not this person doing it at the global level, it's going to be that specific board member in their free time outside of their normal job, scrutinizing the data, taking up their time that they're not even getting paid for. But once it's done at the ITRA level, it's global. Anyone can use the points now. So we could have a race here, which I don't believe there's any races in the US that use that system. We could say you need 6 points to qualify.
Right.
Go choose amongst any in the world that are certified.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice.
Instead of having qualifiers for like the Mogi on Monster, we could switch to a point system.
You could.
Here's all of these.
Yeah. And depending on the difficulty of your race, you could say, well, you need 9 points, but it has to be within 2 races.
Yeah.
And that will kind of give you a rough idea that they're qualified because they've done really hard races.
You've had to run a 4-point race and a 5-point race, which are not easy
and
races.
That's different if it was like, oh, you can do 4 races and it can add up to that.
Right.
That would be a very different story. But I don't know. I don't know the amount of time that's spent with all of these lotteries and all of these qualifications of all these people here in the US vetting all of these different race results. I don't know if Ultra Signup does it automatically for a lot of them or if there's someone manually highlighting or something or Excel sheets everywhere. That was a tangent.
It was. And I can't remember where we're going next.
It was, but we could loop it back around. So kind of to wrap up the Western States Lottery, I think they're the most extreme example of maybe the problem where we're at in the sport with the supply and the demand. And it doesn't seem, I guess to their credit, they aren't going the way of Ironman where you have to get a qualifier to go to Kona, or Boston Marathon, where it's only fast people. You know, we only want sub 24-hour runners. Instead, they want all abilities to be able to toe the line. And I like that. Yeah. Where like the guy that takes 29:59, that's their ability level for their age, whatever it is.
But they still have to qualify.
They can still qualify. Yeah, right. It's not for everyone.
It's not for everyone. I mean, like Black Canyon, we still have, you still have to make it within this qualifying
But we're not saying that only sub 24-hour runners get to run or sub 20-hour runners. They could do that. They could fill the whole field with sub 20-hour athletes.
Yeah.
And we could just have a 369-person championship with the overall cutoff could be 24 hours. Yeah. We could have a championship, which I wouldn't like to see that.
No, but I mean, and that's kind of the exciting thing. Like, you see at Western States, someone come across the line in every hour, 17 hours all the way to 29:59 almost this year with Karen Bonet, which was amazing, or last year, I guess, in 2017. It's cool that they accept all those abilities, but at the same time, it's just there's still a question of
well, in any way they do it, they're kind of screwed at the end of the day.
Yeah. I mean, all abilities welcome, and everybody to their heart's desire apply in the lottery and get your qualifiers. But just looking at my chances and knowing that there are other people out there like me wanting to run this race, the chances are really slim to none, or even worse,
that you may ever get to
that
run.
that I'll ever get to run. Or, I mean,
well, do you feel like they put that forth that like as long as you keep applying, you'll get in? And do you think that's accurate? Do you think?
Yeah. Is that a question of, do they reward the patience? You know, if I apply and qualify every single year for the next 15 years and I put everything else that maybe I want to do aside because I really want to run Western States, are they going to reward my patience and, you know, find some way to give me an entry? Because based on the lottery alone, based on the mathematics, I'm not going to get in. So is there another way?
Or for a lot of people, it literally will take 15 to 20 years at this point. If you are just now applying.
I don't think patience is the, it's not a...
It's not the answer.
It's not the answer. It's keep applying and you'll finally get in. Because we're going to see 15, 20-year people, you know,
and that's the question. Should we all have to ask ourselves, let's say if you're a first-time applicant to Western States right now, what's your prognosis? If let's say you did what you were supposed to do and you ran a qualifying race off the list every year for the next 16 years and then you finally get to run the race, was it worth it?
Is it worth it?
To run the list of qualifiers every year for 16 years, chasing it, maybe instead of running races that you want to do because you want to do them. And not to say you can't do that.
No,
and
but
you got to bag that one qualifier.
You are limited.
But sometimes it feels like some of us are just chasing the qualifiers. And
right.
Is that really what we should be doing? I think we should stop and ask ourselves that sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, and I really do, if, you know, someone's out there and they've waited 7 years to run it, I hope it's worth it. But at what point...
7 years doesn't sound so bad because I think it's going to get worse.
Well, that's the thing. Like, after 20 years, is it going to be worth it? And, you know, at what point? Because I am not the most patient individual. I really, just a little bit about me. But for the most part, you know, I'm going to draw a line in the sand and say, if I don't get in by this year, sorry. I've got other things to do. I have other things to chase. You know, I've got to live my best life. And that does not include doing the same thing over and over and over, year after year after year. It wouldn't be worth it to me.
Cool. Does that wrap it up for Western?
Oh, yeah.
Moving on to Hardrock. This one does things a little bit differently. And they even say right on their lottery process, each year we're faced with the difficult problem of how to choose our starters from now more than 1,900 applicants. So they're getting up there quick.
They are.
And Hardrock is more selective. This is a postgraduate 100-mile race. So you have to complete from a list of selected 100-mile races. So this can't be your first rodeo.
No, and it shouldn't be.
And it's a short list.
And it should be a short list.
And most of them are in September, which is pretty funny. Or 200-mile races, actually, I think are now part of this as well. So it's funny because and they've been more selective lately. It used to be a little bit of a wider list. So they give you 2-year qualifying window for events, except Hardrock, and you can use that for 3 years. So if you finish Hardrock, they reward you a little bit, and you
have a 3-year
3-year window. So it's kind of nice because there's not as much pressure, but it's kind of a bigger deal because you have to run and finish a 100-mile race. And I don't know about anyone else, but I can't pop those off whenever I feel like it.
No?
I mean, I probably could, but I don't think it's a good idea for longevity or anything else.
It's not like, you know, you're going to go slog out a 50K.
Don't
slog out a 100-mile race.
Or a Hardrock qualifier.
Or a Hardrock.
Those are usually hard races.
Don't go to the Mogollon Monster and say, I can probably just tough it out for 100 miles.
So they have a list of domestic races, which are almost primarily in August and September completely. And then there's a couple outside the window. So actually Barkley Marathons is on here, which is really funny. But that's the first one in March. They used to have the
a finisher, like you have to finish the Barkley.
The 100.
The 100,
the full 5 loops, which is it's hilarious. I think the only person to ever use that is probably Jared Campbell. Then they've got some other ones scattered throughout the year that are overseas ones, things like the Northburn 100 in New Zealand, the Ultra Fjord. Really, the Ultra... I'm going to take a little bit of a second here to talk about the Ultra Fjord.
Okay.
This is the race where a runner passed away during the event due to hypothermia.
Yeah, we talked about this.
And I don't know. To me, that would be a strike against this race being on the Hardrock list. That's just me personally.
Right.
And not
Take
to
care
say,
of your runners.
Not to say that, heaven forbid, would ever happen at one of our events, but it seemed like they were overwhelmed with their event and they didn't have their contingency plans. They didn't have everything in place and didn't make maybe the decisions that they should have. That's me from an outsider perspective, having never been to Chile.
Yeah, but it's also your perspective as a race director who's,
It's just concerning. And to see it on this list when I know they cut, at one point they cut Leadville, at one point they cut Western States, at one point they cut Hurt 100.
Why?
And I know they cut Leadville, I think, when it was taken over by Lifetime.
Which, yeah, I would.
There was trash one year, and there was a lot of runners one year, and they were a bit overwhelmed.
Yeah.
I don't think health and safety was maybe necessarily an issue, but it was just they had a transition year that wasn't good. And maybe I'm giving them a little too much credit. It's possible. But they got axed for that. Western States, I don't remember why. And I don't really know why Hurt isn't on here. That's really kind of baffling because that is one of the most well-run 100-milers in existence. And it is so tough. It is extremely difficult. There's probably 25,000 feet to climb. It's super rocky and rooty. Doesn't have altitude, but
I was going to say, is it because of the altitude?
Not
is it
all
because
these
of
races are altitude races, you know? I mean, Angeles Crest has a little altitude at the beginning, but then
Bighorn?
You run down. Bighorn's a mountain race. I mean, but Hawaii is a mountain race it could have storms and rain and mud. Anyways, we're kind of getting off topic, but Ronda del Sim should definitely be on that list. So
they have a short list of qualifiers.
It's a pretty short list, and most of them are in the late summer, and most of them are in August and September. I think well over half or 2/3 of this list. So pretty much everyone in August, September, everyone's running their Hardrock qualifiers. And what you'll see is a lot of these races are sold out. You're starting to see that there's actually 2 of the 200-mile races are on here as well. So you need to apply, or you need to qualify, and then you need to apply in December. And 145 runners are selected. So this one's a little unique in that they have 3 different lotteries. For those of you that aren't familiar with it, if you are familiar with it, just bear with me here for 1 second. But they have 3 different lotteries. We'll start with the Veterans Lottery. They have 33 slots allocated in that one. And that's anyone with 5 Hardrock finishes or more.
Yeah.
So they like to reward guys and gals that have been coming for a long time and that are an integral part of the race. And that's important to the Hardrock culture because it creates this sense of continuity.
Yeah.
And the sense of family.
There's
it's something very real.
Very intimate, very, that's felt when you go to Silverton.
And there's usually people hanging out 2 weeks in advance because they've centered their lives around Hardrock. Yeah. And it's this select group that you kind of, it's a reunion.
They're like legends. And it's this reunion, this family reunion that you go back to every year. And even if you've never run it.
But the reality is those are 33 slots that are taken away from these potential 1,900 applicants, some of which have never run the race before, whereas these veterans have run it 5 or more times already. So they've
Upwards
gotten the experience
of 20 times.
Many over 20 times.
Yeah.
So they have gotten the Hardrock experience many times over.
Yeah.
Then there's the never started list. 45 slots go to the never started. So that's just what it says. If you've never pinned a bib on that morning and run at 6 a.m. and started the race.
Yeah.
You're in that lottery pool.
45 slots.
Only 45. I mean, there's only 145 total, so.
I know, but 45.
It's 45 slots.
For the majority of the people who are applying.
It's true.
How many have never run the race? Probably a majority of those individuals.
So I think the thinking behind this is that, I mean, the Hardrock board decides all of this.
Yeah.
So they decide first off how this is conducted and then how many people go into each one.
All right.
So they've, in keeping in line with the idea that they like the continuity of the people that have run it before, they want to give new people a chance to run. From what I've heard, that is what is. And then
okay, go ahead.
So then the third lottery is everyone else. So these are anyone who is not part of those groups. So people that have started the race and not finished, or people with 4 finishes.
4 or less finishes.
4 or less, including 0 finishes.
Correct.
But started.
If you've stepped up to the line,
then you get into the next one.
You get into the else category.
So let's go through the numbers of each lottery. So I think there was about, for those veterans, there's 33 slots, and there was about 40 people in that lottery. So most people get in, and then there's a wait list, of course, and a couple more will get in. So maybe 3 or 4 won't get in this year.
Yeah.
The everyone else, which has the largest number, 67 slots, there's about 200, and that's been pretty static in my experience because I've been in that pool for quite a while. So you have, about a third of all those people will get picked. And if you have more finishes, then you have upwards of a 50% chance. And that's about where I'm at. I have 4 finishes, so I historically run the race every other year.
And for every finish that you have, you get a ticket.
I get
correct?
more tickets.
You get more tickets because not only do you get your qualifying tickets and your, year after year, whatever tickets, you get your 4 tickets.
Same with the veteran slots. So like those guys that have 20 plus finishes, they get
a ticket for every finish.
I'm pretty certain they do. Yeah. So they get an even better shot. And so they really reward the people that have been there and that they've been coming and they've been part of it.
Right.
That leaves us with the never started. There's 45 slots, and I'm just going to throw out a number close to 1,700, 1,750, 1,800 people for 45. Those are not good numbers.
Those are not great numbers. Those are not great odds. And especially if you've never started and you are getting 1 qualifier, you start with 1 ticket.
You do get 2 to the end tickets. So those are the N equaling previous DNSs. So every time you apply
and you don't get in,
you get 1 more N. Right. And then that multiplies, it's an exponential number. So
if I didn't get in for 2 years, then I get 4 tickets.
And that doesn't, if you don't apply for a year, you still did not start 2 times.
Right.
They don't count did not starts when you didn't apply. So if
something happens and I don't qualify for 1 year, or I take a year off to have a baby, or if whatever happened, there's a buffer year.
You can still pick up where you left off.
And pick up the tickets that I had previous years.
Yeah, and it's DNS meaning you applied, you were qualified, you went through the lottery.
And didn't get
but you didn't get
picked
to start.
Correct.
So, but once you just start the run, you get bumped up to the way better odds lottery. So if you get a chance to start Hardrock, start it. You heard that here. Well, you could figure it out probably, but yeah, if you have a broken leg and you can start that race,
start it.
And you can drop at the first aid station. Under the current incentive system, start the race because
you'll be in the else category.
You'll now be in the 67 slot for 200 spot lottery.
Right.
So I think there's no loop. I don't think there's any way to there's a loophole that counts against you.
You know what bums me out about that though? For someone who is waiting on the wait list, they're number 1 on the wait list. They've never started the race.
There is a sob story like that. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
And then
I think
you
that's
see someone who you know that they're not going to finish. They're sick. They're not feeling it. They've got GI issues from the beginning. They're not going to make it to the first aid station, but they're going to start the race anyway because they know if they start it, then they'll get into the else category. When they could have given up and said, you know what? I know I'm not going to be able to run this race. I know I'm not going to finish.
That's the frustrating thing because they do hold a wait list for the race in each pool.
I know.
And they select them all the way up till race morning. So
yeah,
it's super exciting. If you're in the gym in Silverton and they go up to the 15 minutes before, and if they don't check in, then they start giving away. And it's happened where 1 minute someone is not in Hardrock.
Not in Hardrock.
And
at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Well, at 5:50, 10 minutes before race start,
they will
announce and you're in, and you now have to run for up to 48 hours.
Yeah.
It's wild.
That's awesome. That's exciting.
The frustrating thing is if you are that person that's sitting in that gym ready to go, because you have to be ready to accept the bib.
Absolutely.
So you have your pack, you ate your dinner the night before, you packed your bags just in case, you might have a crew. You're all ready to go. And
everybody's checked in. Someone comes hobbling in with a broken ankle
at the first aid station, and you could have finished it, and you could have started, and you could have gone further than that.
Yeah.
That is too bad.
But I mean, that's the thing with Hardrock Lottery. Like, you have, if you have started just one time, your odds increase exponentially. Like, you have so much better odds. You will always have better odds than me, who's never run the race, who may be applying in the next couple of years. And my chances of getting in, especially, I mean, this is a whole nother topic, but especially as a woman, my chances of getting in are, again, slim to none compared to someone who's a 4-time finisher.
Yeah, I'm the privileged person. So I don't know. Is this interesting, exciting? Is this boring? I can't tell. I could talk about this stuff all day because it's kind of fun. But we're coming from a unique perspective. We're race directors. We're runners. We know these races. We've been there. To me, it's exciting to kind of pontificate about this stuff.
Well, especially, and, between us, the fact that you've run all these races and that your chances of running the races again are even better than mine who have never run the races. You actually...
that goes for Hardrock.
I know, but like experiencing the race, if you've experienced the race multiple times, you still have a better chance of experiencing it again and again and again compared to someone who's never run the race.
That's one thing I think about and talk about. Sorry, I cut you off there.
Go on.
One thing I think about sometimes is what is that 4th or 5th, or let's say I got up to 7 or 12 or 18 finishes of Hardrock. What is the value to me, the marginal value of doing it one more time? Yeah. How much does that really mean to me? Because I think once we do things over and over again, the first time you do, like the first time you finish Hardrock, or the first time you get to run Western States, that's such a moment.
Yeah.
But, but then I'm like, okay, that was incredible. And I'm grateful every time I get to run it. But I don't think it means as much as that first time. It means a little bit less each time, I think. Maybe it could mean more individually for a certain reason, but does it mean as much as that one person that's been applying for 7 years straight and hasn't gotten in?
Right.
That's an interesting thing to think about.
I mean, is
me running it a 5th time, how much value does that add to my life versus if you got to run it for the first time?
Right.
but that's hard to quantify, and it doesn't really fit with the values of the race.
Yeah. Is it as special for those individuals who have run the Hardrock 15 times, 20 times? Is it special every single year? And
Maybe it is.
And it might be because of the familial effect that race has on everybody. You know, you're coming back. It's a reunion. But it doesn't necessarily mean, you know, for me, it's, you know, you have to run it every year. Is there another way you can be involved in the race by maybe stepping aside, letting a never run the race in your stead, and, you know, you volunteering? I
mean, I personally enjoy running it, and I enjoy not running it because then I get to choose a different race to do and expand my horizons a little bit. That's just personal.
I mean, yeah, but
I love doing that. And I guess that's where everyone who's not getting in, they are choosing other races to do, obviously.
Right.
And I would recommend Ronda del Sims. If anyone's out there listening, if we have any listeners at all in this show, I don't know. I mean, if you're with us still over an hour in, and we're talking like the deep, dark
kudos
lottery talk right now, like this is some serious stuff.
You've won.
Go run Andorra Ultra Trail Ronda del Sims. That is a race that is most comparable to Hardrock that I've ever seen or experienced, and it's tougher, so you get bragging rights. It has 44,000 feet of climb. Yeah. Hardrock's about 33, so it's about 30% harder. And it's like 106 miles, I think. No one's ever broken 30 hours on the normal course. It took me 41. You get 65 or something.
That's awesome.
And it's gnarly. It's more technical, more exposed, not quite as high, but the terrain looks strikingly similar when you get up above tree line. There's places on that course where if you plucked me from the San Juans and dropped me there, I would think I was just over the next ridge. It's unbelievable. So
that's exciting.
I would say, and the race is really affordable once you get there. I think the entry fees was $160 when I ran it, and I got.
And it's still like within a small community, isn't it? Like the town it comes.
The town it starts in is a really small town. It's different. It's really old, but it's Well, I know Silverton is too.
You kind of have that still like.
It's a bit. It's more modern. It's a little. Well, no, it's like a mix. It's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not a big city. It's a small town outside of a bigger city.
Yeah.
And.
How many?
And you're running through ski resorts. You're going over peaks. You're scrambling up stuff.
How many people run that?
I think there's maybe 300 or 400 in the 100-mile distance. They have other distances, so it's
still a smaller.
It's bigger, but it spreads out. Yeah. I mean, the first couple climbs are pretty packed, but same with Hardrock, but it spreads out, thins out quick.
But no, like just kind of like. Going off on the tangent of, you know, if you've run it like X amount of times, you know, there's a way to still stay within the community and be a part of Hardrock.
So one of my favorite stories is Rock Horton ran it 10 times, and then he committed to becoming aid station captain of Kroger's Canteen for 10 years. That's amazing. I love stories like that.
Yeah. Like Hardrock gave me 10 years. I'm going to give Hardrock 10 years back before he applies for the lottery again.
And now you can kind of flip that because there's actually a couple hacks to get ahead in the lottery, which we should talk about because maybe not everyone knows about this.
Right, which is volunteering. And
aid station captain, you get an extra ticket, which I think it moves you up a whole year. It adds to your N before you multiply it. So it can jump you a whole year. And if you do trail work both days, you get a ticket,
and they reward.
And if you're a certified trail boss, another ticket. Right. So I don't know if you can stack up all of those.
But then, like, if you're a volunteer for X amount of years, like, you know, I can't remember, like 1 to 10 years, you get one ticket, and then beyond that, you get 2 tickets.
For every 5 years of service, you get tickets. So it's kind of cool. They do reward involvement, and that is something that...
And you're still a part of the community. You're still a part of, that familial atmosphere.
And that's something that I love about the Hardrock experience.
Absolutely.
Because it's not just a race that you show up to and you pay your fee and you run it.
And you go.
And you get your buckle and you go. Number one, because there's no buckle.
Yeah.
Well, there's a rock and you get to kiss it.
You get to kiss it.
That's what there is.
But I mean, it's still
more.
as coveted. Like it's a coveted thing that you get to do. And, I mean, for me, more than any other race, Hardrock is number one for me. Like at some point in my life, I really want to be able to kiss that rock.
You should volunteer every year.
As a runner.
You should do trail work every year.
Every year.
And you should become an aid station captain and a certified trail boss. And pretty soon, you're going to apply for first time and you're going to get in. Well, course marking and clearing, you don't get tickets for those unless you go above and beyond. So
right.
Let's say you take over that, then you might. What else about Hardrock?
I mean,
I said my
excuse
piece.
to stay in the San Juans for as long as I can throughout the year.
Yeah, I'll just add with all of this that we're talking about. I mean, we're just kind of shooting off the hip. This is just like we're having a beer.
Yeah.
We're just kind of venting maybe some things that
I mean,
most people talk. We talk about this all the time, and I think it's interesting to
We've
talk
talked about
it
before. Where I think even in Outhouse, you were like, kind of non-apologetic, like my chances are better than your chances.
Yeah, it is a weird feeling. I mean, obviously, I'm happy I've gotten to run it 4 times.
For
I
sure.
absolutely love the race, and
But all in one direction.
If someone all of a sudden it's luck.
Okay.
If someone all of a sudden told me that you're not going to be able to run it for the next 10 years.
Would you be okay with it?
That would be... that'd be a tough pill to swallow because I love Hardrock so much. But it's flipping the tables because that's what most people are facing that are applying for the first time right now. Yeah. It's basically the race is telling you, you can't run this race for 10 years. Probably. Or more. I don't even know. Like, with those kind of odds, when we're talking 0.04%, that's pretty much you're never going to run it.
Thanks. It's a tough pill to swallow.
That sucks.
Thanks for that news.
I don't want to pour the salt in the wound.
No, but
I could easily say... But I'm probably going to get to run it next year. And that's where it gets a little bit weird.
Well, here's the thing, and especially like with Hardrock, they make it kind of with the dividing categories, but still they don't give away spots to sponsors and they don't give away spots to other ways of basically essentially you can buy your way into this race.
Well, right? That's what Western states, I think that's one that you can.
Yeah.
If you're
you really, really want to run it.
If you're a sponsor at a certain dollar level, your company gets a spot in the race. You can do with it what you want. So if you're the owner of the company,
there are some loopholes.
There's a loophole there. Like I don't know for certain if anyone does that.
With Hardrock, it's not.
Hardrock, you can't do that.
There's no loopholes.
The only thing is,
earn your stripes, basically.
Dale's Picks is a loophole, but we don't know.
We don't know how that works.
We that's not public information on. They have publicly come out and said that Dale does have 5 selections. We just don't know who they are. Those are not published.
You're telling me I need to make friends with Dale.
You might want to make friends with Dale. So, but I would say that I guess if you go up and you integrate with the Hardrock culture and you become part of the race, honestly, for me anymore, and I know it's different because I've gotten to run the race, you get the Hardrock experience. If you do all the course marking days and you go out there, it's not all about the race. The race is a nice cherry on top. But there are so many ways to experience the race and the idea of the Hardrock miners and being out there. And that's what it's really all about.
Being up there in the mountains amongst the people, however you want to include yourself in the race, even, if you're going to crew, if you're going to pace, if you're going to volunteer a day, there's something about that experience that you don't necessarily ever need to run the race to be a part of that family, which is really a cool thing. But at the same time, there's always that nagging in the back of my mind. I want to experience Hardrock
as a
runner.
Yeah. And I don't fault you for that. And I just wish that everyone who wanted to run it can run it. And that's the biggest thing that tugs at me. And that's why I think I get all fired up about this stuff, because I wish there was a way to have every person. And I mean, I've said, get rid of pacers,
Right.
You could have twice the number of people out there. Get rid of crew. I don't care. Like, I could run without a crew and a pacer.
UTMB doesn't have pacers, correct?
No Europe in general, there's no pacing.
There's no pacers.
And I've done races over there without crew before. And a lot of times they have 1 or 2 drop bags. Yeah. UTMB has...
As a 100-mile race.
Is it 1 drop bag? Maybe 2. It might be... It's 1 or 2 drop bags. That's it. I did the TDS 1 drop bag for a 75-mile race in the Alps with a ton of climbing.
Yeah.
Ronda Del Sims, I think, had 1 or 2 for a 104-mile race that took 41 hours. 2 drop bags, no crew, no pacer.
No crew, no pacer.
And that's a graduate. That's not even a graduate level run, but this is a graduate level run. I think very easily they could go, if they wanted to increase the size to get more people in, and make it
no
fair.
Pacers.
Like, if they said,
at least
they could just say, everyone just goes back into the lottery. Once you got to run it, you go right back into the bottom of the barrel. And
so
then
there's no
one way to do it.
Yeah.
Give maybe 1 ticket. You don't have these classes.
The classes.
Yeah, the class system.
Yeah.
It's like doing away with the class system. And that's one of the things we could bring up is the gender inequality thing. As far as Hardrock goes, it's not totally their fault, because a lot of men started applying. More men apply, period.
Yes.
I think about 18% of the women were applicants.
Yes.
But only 9% at the end of the day are in the run of the total field.
There's usually less than 10% of the field being women, and what they say, which is incredibly low. When you're talking about, there's 145 people, and sometimes there's a year of 11 women getting into Hardrock. That's appalling to me. And the argument is, well, there needs to be more women applying. And while I agree with that, while the sport is a little lopsided anyway, definitely, women need to apply, but there's got to be a better way to, allow women to kind of show up in this sport, especially at these major.
I wonder what the percentage finishers at the qualifiers are. That would be interesting to see. Of the Hardrock qualifiers, it's got to be higher than 18%.
Oh, of the women.
I don't know. It'd be cool to look
that
up.
That would be really interesting.
But the reason that there's 9% compared to 18% is because when there was more men applying when it first got started, there was less women. And so that's kind of compounded because more men have finishes, and then those, anyways.
Betsy Nye and Betsy Kalmeyer told me that, when she ran,
there was like 2 women.
18 years ago, there was maybe 2 women
in the whole
race.
That's wild.
She ran when when she was the only woman, when the field was all men and her. And she towed the line just as much as any dude out there. Like, that to me is amazing. And, I'm hoping that people will look at her the way I look at her, and women can run these hard mountain races. Don't think you can't, and start applying. Go do it.
Yeah, I would love to see more women apply. Should we touch on UTMB real quick?
Sure.
This is maybe arguably the biggest trail running race in the world.
Thousands.
In terms of, it may not be the largest in terms of numbers, but prestige-wise, it's the Super Bowl of trail running on a global scale. So for 2018, there's 2,300 runners in UTMB, 1,900 in CCC, 1,600 in TDS. These are all different distances. 1,200 in the 56-kilometer OCC, and then 300 each in the PTL, which is 290K, even longer than UTMB.
That's a team one?
Yeah.
That's the team one.
And 300 in the 15K. So to get into this race, you need to qualify by earning the points that we talked about earlier. We won't rehash that, but it's based upon the list of UTMB qualifying races, which is also the ITRA races, which can theoretically be used by other races in the world. I think Ultra Trail du Mont Fuji uses them as well. So like, for instance, UTMB, you need 15 points in 3 races maximum. They give you a 2-year window for these races, just to note that. And the other ones, because they're shorter, need less points. There's also a way for elites to get in. So they rank runners based upon their performances. And these ITRA rankings, the International Trail Running Association, has a performance index. If you're above 870 for the men, above 770 for the women, you get free registration. You don't need to go through the drawing. So that's really high elite guys, though. That'd be guys like Tim Frericks and Jim Walmsley. They just get in. Automatically. If you're above 770 or 670, respectively, for men and women, you still have to pay, but you are an automatic in. You don't have to go through the lottery.
And everything's rated, though, through ITRA, correct?
Yeah, so like every time you run a race that I guess is ITRA ranked, which I don't know if that's every race. I think they try and get as many as they can.
Yeah.
Because I know all of ours are. The Aravaipa races, for the most part. But I don't know
any ultra that we have on our calendar is ITRA listed.
Yeah. And I think even races, well, because you can't, I don't think Hardrock or all those other races aren't qualifiers because they refused. They wrote that letter.
They wrote the letter and they said, we're not going to pay to be,
I don't know if those are counted in ITRA or not for the points. They might still use them for the points, but they might not use them for a qualifier. So you can register as a group as well. And then they do the drawing. And this just happened a couple days ago. And they email everyone whether you got in or not. And let's look at some of the numbers. They have historical numbers. I haven't seen it published for this year yet, but the lottery for their race started not until 2009. So the race was started in 2003. And they got to 2008 and UTMB filled in 9 minutes. So the first couple years, they just took however many people applied, then they capped it, and it took 5 months to fill, then 3 weeks, then 10 hours, then 9 minutes. So they at some point knew they needed to change something. And that's what usually happens with a lot of these races is over time, they decide they need to change something. So with 2,300 people as a cap, this is kind of interesting because it spiked up and then it kind of leveled off. So for UTMB, it's actually gone down. So I don't know, maybe Western States is going to see a leveling off at some point. For UTMB, they peaked in 2014. And actually, I don't know about this year. Maybe this year it went back up. But maybe it looks like they've made the points harder to obtain.
Yeah.
So that's probably cut it down. They've also added all these other races. And it seems like these have been getting more popular. Like look at the number
of OCC and
even the TDS. These were added in later years. And I think the overall number of applicants is definitely up across the board. Way up in terms of even the OCC is pretty new, and that saw 4,200 applicants for 1,200 spots last year. The TDS saw 2,600, the most ever for 1,600 spots, and the most ever in the CCC. So as a whole, more popular than ever. And a lot of times, for me included, I've run UTMB, and I wanted to not do it again because it's hard.
But still,
but I wanted to do another one. But Those are huge numbers. Not everyone is going to get in.
I mean, they're huge numbers, but it looks like, if you've never run it, you still have a
pretty good shot.
Shot.
They have big capacities. You're talking
for 1,200. If they let 1,200 people in the OCC, or they let, almost 2,500 people in UTMB, like those are major numbers. And if there's 5,000 people applying, you've a 50% shot. That's pretty solid
compared to 250 that get selected for Western states,
right?
Or a similar one for, I don't know, TDS is 2,600, so that'd be kind of like a Hardrock. You have 1,600 spots, not 45.
Right.
That's a major problem.
Yeah.
For people that want to run Hardrock someday that have never run it.
If you guys can hoof it over to France, jump the pond a little bit and check something out over in the Chamonix area.
Well, and this goes without saying. I mean, we're heavily focusing on these iconic lottery-driven races tonight.
Yeah.
We're not even talking about the hundreds of races that exist that you can just sign up for, which is a great thing.
Yeah.
You're giving me a skeptical eye. I guess you can't do that for a lot of races anymore, huh? I'm still living in the past.
I don't know.
A lot of them have moved to lotteries.
I mean, that's kind of a bummer if that's the way it's going to go, if that's the way the tide is turning. But, I think I was lucky with, the U100 it's brand new this year and it sold out, but there was no lottery. It was, hey, this opened. You want to sign up? Yep, let's do it. And I got in. So, I mean, that's.
But it's now sold out.
It is.
And so the question is, will they do a lottery next year?
I don't know. If it's going to be, increasingly. I mean, I'm
because that's what happens is it fills quicker and quicker, and then at some point they're melting the computer servers down, and they gotta come up with a solution. But it doesn't always go that way forever. The San Diego 100, for instance, they conducted a lottery, but they had less people apply than spots available.
So they have a lottery, but they didn't actually have enough even apply to make the lottery valid, to even warrant a lottery.
There were spots still available, so they just opened those back up.
Okay.
I'm actually going to check right now. Do you not understand it?
No, I know. No, I just, I'm like thinking, okay, what a waste. To make something.
Oh, just to
hype it,
to hype it and conduct it. I mean, currently there's 12 spots available for the San Diego 100, which takes place in June. So you can sign up.
So I mean, it doesn't even warrant a lottery.
And maybe
you
they
hype
won't...
it to hurry, apply now, spend your money, and I mean, months later I can still get in.
There's 300 applicants or spots available, and I think. I mean, the race will fill. They're not in any danger of that. It's actually kind of nice. It's kind of a relief because they don't have to turn people away.
But that's what I'm saying. Why did they go to a lottery system?
I think maybe they did have that demand in the past, and so they had to go to it. But then maybe the demand fell off.
I mean, but what warrants a lottery system? When you have 200 people more applying than your actual capacity, or do you have 1,000 more people applying past your capacity? Well, what's the limit?
I mean, there's no rules. I think some people just, if they sell their race out 1 year, I think they might think it advantageous to switch to a lottery because it forces everyone who wants a shot at signing up to sign up at the earliest possible date.
And you don't think a first come first serve, hyping, hey, our race opens January 1st. Put it on your calendar, sign up then, because it will sell out. You don't think the reward of first come first serve is better over a lottery.
So I'll give you an instance. The Umstead 100, I think, has still to this day resisted a lottery.
Yeah.
And that is a race that fills up in no joke, 2 minutes. So then it becomes a problem of computer speed and typing your information in like a frenzied panic, and it's stressful. And then
I think that's exciting.
The server crashes, and then you hit payment button twice, you get charged, and you're not sure if you're in or not. I mean, it is kind of exciting.
I think that's kind of exciting. I mean, it's the same. I mean, for me, you know, it's kind of the same experience as getting a Havasu Falls reservation in February. Like, everybody goes the same day, and you just have to be like on it, right? But
I think,
you know,
when it gets to that point, that's when I think people are really thinking, okay, we definitely need a lottery now of some sort, because then it gives everyone a window to apply. It's just one way of thinking.
Maybe. Or is it like, you know, the true old-fashioned early bird gets the worm, you know?
Everyone get your checkbooks out.
Lick
your stamps.
There you go.
First one to postmark it.
There you go.
First one to get it in the race director's mailbox. So if you drive by and put your entry in.
Wouldn't that be exciting though? Like, no online submission. It's only by mail-in.
It's only by hand delivery.
It's only by hand delivery. You know, make it fun. I don't know, like, you know.
Something's got to change, and this could be the future, the old school.
I think it would be more exciting that way. Like, if you really want to run this race and you've qualified, show up my door on Saturday, June the 2nd, and we'll talk business. I don't know.
I'll tell you what, I was just commenting. I still love races where you can mail that check in.
I saw that tweet today.
I just did that for a race that I'm running coming up soon.
I thought that was totally rad. I saw that photo.
So have we beaten the lottery topic to complete death at this point?
I mean, you know,
I bludgeoned it and
have we
drug
talked
it out back?
Have we talked almost 2 hours about this? Maybe, possibly.
Oh, we're only at 1:35.
Oh, no, we could go on and on. But that's the thing. Like, I think, you know, there's multiple viewpoints to be had, like, on all of the races, whether it's Western States, whether it's UTMB, Hardrock, whatever it is. You know, there are multiple races out there that have lotteries, and whether it's good for the race, whether it's good for the participant, you know, I think time will tell. Right now, if you are looking to get into those big ticket races, if you're not an elite athlete, you know, for some of these races, it's going to be a long, hard journey. You're just going to have to be persistent and hope and wish. And, you know, I mean, it's a true lottery. It's, you know, your chances are going to dwindle every year.
Is that the definition of a lottery?
I think that's the definition of a lottery. You know, it's that lightning strike chance that maybe someday
hitting that Powerball.
Yeah. So, and maybe that's the way the ultra running is going, you know. I mean, wonderful that ultra running is growing and is as exciting, you know, in the last few years and the hopefully future years. But at the same time, like, man, why didn't I get into the sport 10 years ago?
Well, and I think another way to look at it too is there are a lot of races out there and new ones popping up all the time, and small races. And sometimes, honestly, for me, it's sometimes more rewarding to go to that small race. I mean, it's almost like you can be Gordy at your own race that is nothing now, but someday might become something.
Yeah.
And that's one way to look at it. For me, I've run a couple of inaugural year 100-milers and just small, old school type races, and those are some of my favorite memories.
I'm excited. I'm excited for this year.
And you're running an inaugural 100-miler.
I think that's
for
exciting
your first.
For me. Yeah.
And I'm sure that Sean Blatton and Run Bum will do a stellar job, but some shit might go wrong. It's a first-year event.
I mean,
even for
there's
the
always
most
the first.
seasoned
Yeah, there's
race
the first
director,
year.
There will be hiccups,
Yeah.
and usually for us, there's more hiccups in year one than there are later, because you learn things and you didn't plan for that. And
but it's kind of exciting, because then you're part of that story. You're part of, that narrative. Like, I remember when it was the first year and I ran it and this shit went down. Like, that's kind of cool. Not that I'm trying to expect, a whole crap load of things to go wrong, but
I think that's a great mentality, though. And
I'm excited for the story and the narrative afterwards. Like,
Yeah. That's just the perfect attitude to go into it with. Just expect the unexpected and roll with it. And with the idea that it's going to make a better story.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Yeah. And I hope more people are able to experience races just for that reason. Not because it's a qualifier, not because they feel that they have to get it because, it's their 10th year of applying for X race. It's, I ran this race. It was, in its first year, or it's in its first stages. Everything went wrong, and it was the best memories I've ever had. Or I ran this race because I've always wanted to run in this area of the world. Seek those things out. I would hope that for everybody, at least to have a story like that.
Yeah, you don't need a lottery to run the Grand Mesa 100, for instance.
Yeah.
There's 15 people that run it, and you can probably sign up race morning. So for all the lotteries out there, there's probably 10 races that you can just roll up to or sign up if you just plan ahead. So
you look at your calendar, choose something for you.
But lottery season is a real thing in the scene, and it's it can be a stressful time. It can be an exciting time. It can be a disappointing time. And sometimes it can leave you just slumped over in a chair thinking, what is my life become? What am I doing? And why do I care so much about all of this? Because shouldn't it be about getting out there and enjoying the run and seeing new places and meeting people?
What do you want to experience? Ultimately, what is the experience?
Pushing yourself beyond what you thought. That's, for me,
that's what ultra running.
Yeah.
That's why I got into it.
And adventure and exploration.
Heck
and
yeah.
accomplishing something.
Yeah.
And you don't necessarily have to go to these other places, although it would be nice. And I do hope that...
they're on a bucket list for a reason. But I'll tell you, if my chances are slim to none or worse, and I never get to run the races, it'll be okay, because there's other places and other adventures to be had. And, I know that, for me at least, I can get along without them.
One thing about Hardrock, the bark beetle's killing all the pine trees, so it's going to be pretty damn ugly there in a couple of years. Just a silver lining.
All right, well, you'll have to tell me more about Andorra.
You have to go to Andorra.
Yeah.
For all the goods, because they don't have the bark beetle there.
It is sad. I've seen the...
Yeah, in all seriousness, and I think, there's more. It seems like there's more and more races going to lotteries. Angeles Crest. I would say a great alternate to Western States is Angeles Crest. They're a lottery, but they at least are going to have a wait list now, which is really great to see.
Yeah.
They're going to have a lottery conducted in December after Western States lottery, so you can see if you got in, and then I'm sure they'll have 4,800 applicants.
Like
right afterwards.
All of the heartbreaks from Western States get rolled over into the next lottery.
Yeah, can we just have one lottery and it just keeps rolling down until everyone gets to run something?
And yeah, like if you make Western, then you're not allowed to run any of the other ones. You've got to run,
No double down?
No double down. No double dipping within these prized hundreds. Why not? We'll just lump them all together. That would probably... It's a whole nother discussion, maybe.
Leadville? Did we talk about that? Do we want to talk about that?
Do we want to talk about it?
I don't know. They have some other ways to get in. They have charity slots. You can skip the lottery and just pay.
I mean,
that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I like that because it does something really great.
It does.
And that is one interesting thing because I was an econ major. I couldn't tell you a lot of econ major stuff, but I mean, that's one way to deal with the supply and the demand problem is raise the price until supply and demand equal each other. There is a price where they will meet. For Western states, that might be $3,900 per entry because that's what people are willing to pay, or it might be $10,000 per entry. I don't know. But at some point, there is a price that will... So this is one way to kind of... You can get somebody
will pay that...
They'll either raise the money by getting lots of donations, or they'll just pay it out of their pocket.
Pay it out of their pocket.
Yeah, $1,500 or $2,000. But I get a guaranteed spot and I avoid the lottery.
If
I want to run it this year.
If I find the RD life is quite lucrative in future years and decide I'm going to drop thousands of dollars to run one of these races.
But what if there was, 10, 15 spots for the Hardrock 100 that cost $10,000 each?
There's somebody that's going to pay it.
Absolutely. Or Western states. And then they could raise $150,000 for charity.
Yeah.
Why not?
I mean,
I don't know.
A lot of your popular marathons do the same thing.
They do that big
time,
don't they?
New York, Chicago, big time.
Huge.
They
Millions of dollars.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you have not been selected in the lottery for one of those races, you can raise, I think, $2,500 to $10,000 for X amount of charities, and you can choose a charity to run for out of their list. I mean, that's big for the race. That's big for the participant. You can raise it or you can pay it out of pocket and still run the race.
So let's talk about this. Here's how the Leadville one works. So you have to raise or donate. You basically just pay the charity partner of your choice a minimum of $2,350. So that includes all of your registration costs, and it's a limited number of these. And there's 5 charity partners, 6 maybe. And some of them are for the mountain bike race, and some are run only. Oh, no. Yeah, some are either or. So basically you pay $2,350. That's the price they've placed on this, and they have a limited number of spots so that they know how much they're going to raise. Additionally, it's kind of interesting that you can actually pay for a coaching package and get a guaranteed entry, it looks like. Am I reading this correctly? Maybe not. Oh, guaranteed entry. So if you go through their training program with their package through their coach, you pay for. So you pay more. Basically, essentially, you're paying. That's how they're dealing with it. They're segmenting their market. So they're saying you get to pay me more money, or you join the training camp and you can get a guaranteed spot.
Which is, kind of cool.
It's $1,000.
You go through the training camp. You ramp up your training via their race. They get you ready for the race. You pay a ridiculous amount of money, but
the entry fee is $315.
It's not like a charity where you pay $2,500 and then you're entered and you may not finish the race because you're not prepared. At least this is their way of preparing you for success a little bit. Ish, right?
Definitely. I mean, you're getting more for it, I guess, but you also have to pay for it. So they have these 50 camp spot entries, and they have these coaching packages. So seems like Leadville has lots of different ways to get in. It's not just the lottery.
Yeah.
But usually it involves paying more money.
But
which is one way to deal with the supply and demand problem.
And they have qualifiers as well.
You can also, qualify your way in or something. So it's all very interesting. Maybe that's why I geek out on it so much, is because my old econ roots coming through. And then my eyes go cross and sideways and I can't think anymore. So, anything else?
What else again?
I'm kind of feeling depleted after all that nonsense.
I mean,
did we have any luck in the lotteries this season? We didn't
you?
talk about that. Did you apply for any lotteries?
I did not.
I applied for Hardrock and Western States, and I didn't get into either of them.
Waitlist?
I was somewhere on the wait list for Hardrock, but it was too far down. There's no way I'll get in.
Okay.
So, which is fine, because instead I'm going to run the Tahoe 200.
Oh, yeah. Which does not currently, like the 200 doesn't have a lottery.
No. It's sold out, but...
Yeah.
So
do you
who
think
knows what they'll
the 200s will become the next 100s and they will somehow go into a lottery-based system?
I'll let you know
after
I experience it.
Is that what we're headed to?
We don't know. Hopefully we'll just have a bunch of these, I don't know, other smaller races popping up. Or maybe we'll all just start supporting charities so we can run our favorite race of choice.
There you go.
It'll just be a constant fundraiser. Final thoughts. Is that it?
I mean,
hopefully that was interesting, guys.
I
don't
hope
know.
so. Like I would say
a little feedback from the audience here.
Run what you want to run, but if what you want to run is the lottery, I guess best of luck at this point.
Yeah, I think it's just with the explosion of entries in some of these lotteries, it's just becoming... We're hitting this stage where the numbers are not looking good for most of us. That we get our hopes up every year, and then I say we because I get into Hardrock every other year. But
I know.
Like even Western States for me now, I'm in a pretty low bracket where you just see it inch up every year. And I haven't done all the numbers on it, but it just seems like it was 3.4% chance. Next year it's going to be 3.6%. Like, why isn't it 6%? It doesn't double? What do you mean? Because that's not how it works when you get these big numbers anymore. And we're multiplying tickets every time.
I think at this point, I mean, the trends aren't going to dwindle.
It was interesting with UTMB, but like we said, they're expanding their other events. So they're adding spots.
Right.
Whereas... You're not going to have a 50-mile Western States race that I see coming down in the pipeline or a 50-mile Hardrock that's going to all of a sudden open up these 300 or 400 new spots, because sometimes you only want to run the 50-mile race one year. You may not want to run the 100. You may want to run that 50.
And I think that might be as part of the, there's almost a sanctity to it, that they're not going to expand into other races, other events, other
because they feel it's a purity thing, maybe with the 100-mile.
That's what
they
I'm
would
saying.
never. Most races wouldn't care. They would add distances, but those ones wouldn't. They wouldn't want to.
Yeah.
At least not anytime soon.
Not the historical race. Not the.
Whew.
Nailed it.
All right. Well, we're going to wrap up this week's episode. Please let us know how you guys are liking the show. If you're watching this on YouTube, leave a comment below. Mm-hmm. If you're listening to this, be sure to rate the podcast. That would really help us out in our rankings, because we're starting at the very bitter bottom. It's like we're new lottery entries. If you guys are just joining us, this show did evolve from Aravaipa Trail Talk. Yep. We did 40 some odd episodes. Those are available on our Aravaipa YouTube channel, the archives. But we've kind of changed the format of the show. We're talking about these bigger topics. And if these are interesting, please let us know. We don't always want to tackle these super serious topics. We tackled cheating last week. We're talking these lotteries right now because that's what's going on. Yeah, but if there is something that you believe, is maybe making waves within the trail community, if you believe, if there's something that you really want to
kind of dive into. We'll do a Google deep dive. We're not afraid to whatever it is. We'll talk about it.
We want to let you guys into our heads and into the conversation. And we both come from diverse backgrounds in the sport, with Jubilee being relatively new. I have a couple more years under the belt and under the foot, whatever.
Just a few more years.
So we feel like some unique perspectives to interact with back and forth.
Yeah.
Which I think has been interesting to hear those perspectives.
Yeah.
And we will keep doing it. I don't know.
Yeah, just let us, if you have questions, comments, or topics that you would like to inject into the show, please let us know. You can tweet us at Jamil Coury, at Happy Jubilee. You can Instagram us at the same, at Jamil Coury, at Happy Jubilee. And maybe we'll do like a at Trail Currents Podcast TCP hoopla of sorts that we'll invite you to question and comment as well.
We're just planting seeds, and they will sprout soon.
We'll figure it out.
Upcoming topics.
What do you got?
We might talk about the Ultra Running Magazine Ultra Runner of the Year, Ultra Performance of the Year. I think that would be a great topic for next week.
Number 1 is coming out tomorrow?
Yeah, so they just announced number 2 today.
Dun, dun,
we know who number 1 is now.
I know.
It's kind of they should like flip the last one.
Right?
When they get down to the first and second, they should announce the winner first. And then second place.
Or like maybe like a double down, like.
Or just both.
Just both at the same time.
I think that's how the award shows do it, except when they screw it up. And
like if it's like Miss America type of thing, they announce the runner-up, and then you automatically you automatically know. Like Miss America's like, oh my gosh, I won it. Yeah. So without announcing the winner, you already know who the winner is. But we'll talk about it.
All right. Until next time, we want to thank our sponsor one last time, Run Steep, Get High.
Fantastic.
Use the code TCP15 over at runsteep.com. You got all kinds of sweet threads and hats, and literally we're selling threads, but they've been knit into shirts and printed on.
Fantastic.
And they're freaking dope.
Rep every day.
Thank you guys for tuning in. And
we'll see you next week.